You're standing outside a glass-walled conference room. Your palms are a little damp. Voices float through the door, clipped and sharp, and you can almost smell the tension, a wire pulled too tight. In a minute, you'll walk in and try to win support for an idea everyone has already poked holes in. You run through your slides, you rehearse your logic, but something in you knows logic alone won't turn the room. What turns people is older and softer and far more powerful. It's the feeling of being seen, the warmth of their own name, the relief of respect. It's the sense that you and I are on the same side, solving the same problem. That's the door Dale Carnegie opens, not a bag of tricks, a way of moving through conversations that leaves people a little taller, a little lighter, and strangely eager to help you. Stay with me as we step into a few rooms and watch how small human choices tilt the floor. Dale Carnegie wrote this book in the 1930s when the air in New York carried coal dust and worry. He taught public speaking at night to ordinary people who dreaded the sound of their own voices. In those classrooms, he ran hundreds of tiny experiments on human connection. What opened people up? What shut them down? The lessons spread by word of mouth, then on to paper, and the book took on a life of its own. He wasn't discovering the exotic. He was noticing what already worked. He noticed that a name, said with care, wakes up a person's whole body. He noticed that nobody really wins an argument. The bridge you need together gets damaged even in victory. That practical, almost humble spirit is why this book still breathes. It doesn't demand that you become loud or brilliant. It asks you to become generous, curious, and precise in the way you honor people, at home, at work, and anywhere two lives touch. At its core, the book says this: people move on feeling before they move on fact. If you want to lead, help, or sell, begin with their pride, their hopes, their desire to feel important. Treat that desire with honest respect. Show a sincere interest in their world. Smile. Remember their name as if it's music. Listen more than you speak. Talk in terms of what matters to them and invite them into the solution. Do these things not as tactics, but as a habit of heart, and influence arrives as a side effect. Let's step back into that glass room. You push the door, and the faint smell of dry erase marker and stale coffee rises to meet you. 3 colleagues glance up. Mark's jaw is set. Priya's arms are folded. Louis taps a pen like a metronome. You could start with your deck. Instead, you start with people. You walk to Mark first, say his name, and thank him for the late analysis he emailed last night. You ask 2 real questions about his findings. His shoulders drop a centimeter. You turn to Priya and thank her for the risk reviews on the last project. They saved a costly detour. Louis gets a smile and a quick callback to his joke from yesterday's stand-up. A few grains of warmth settle into the room. You begin with a story instead of a chart. A few years ago, you say you made a call that cost the team a week. You didn't ask enough questions. You assumed you knew. You own the mistake without excuse. The room shifts. People unclench. Then you ask for help rather than obedience. I want to make sure we don't repeat that. Would you help me stress test this plan? Heads nod. The idea is already partly theirs. As you walk through the plan, you watch faces the way a pilot watches instruments. When Mark frowns, you pause. What are you seeing that I'm missing? He talks, you listen, and you look for places to say, "You're right," or "That's a good catch." Your aim is not to win a duel, but to make an ally who will defend the idea when you're not in the room. You widen the box to fit his correction. Halfway through, a snag appears. Priya thinks the timeline is naive. Your pulse ticks higher. The old reflex wants to argue. Instead, you offer bait the other person likes. What would make the timeline feel realistic to you? You ask. She talks about risk control. You recast the plan in her language, anchoring milestones around reviews she'd lead. Her eyes brighten. The plan now carries her fingerprints. This is the quiet architecture of leadership. You make people feel important with sincerity. You talk in terms of their interests. You let the other person feel the idea is theirs. You avoid criticism and condemnation because they slam the very doors you're trying to open. You replace "you're wrong" with "help me understand." Carnegie filled his pages with stories because stories smell like life. Picture a young Abraham Lincoln, angry and eloquent, writing a blistering letter to a general and setting it aside. He learned that shaming hardens. Praising what is right helps a person rise. A manager who says, "There's a lot of good here. I know you can do even better," often watches improvement appear like a sunrise. People stretch toward the expectations of those who believe in them. Consider the way a name works. You meet a receptionist named Elena. You say, "Thank you, Elena," when she checks you in, and later, "Elena, could you let Jordan know I'm here?" The sound of her name, spoken with warmth, is like a light switch. It is not flattery. It is attention. Arguments are another trap. Winning one can feel clever, but it's like winning a skirmish on a bridge you needed to cross together. So you avoid arguments when you can. If one begins, you find what's true on their side and admit it. You admit your own mistakes quickly and plainly. Then you ask, what would a good outcome look like for both of us? That question moves the talk from pride to problem solving. Back at work, you're guiding a new hire, nervous and eager. Rather than open with warnings, you point out a strength you see. Your notes from yesterday's call were clear and fast. Could you teach us your system next week? You hand them a small flag to plant. If something goes wrong, you criticize the behavior, not the person, and you do it in private. You ask questions instead of orders. How might we check our assumptions before the client meeting? Could we run a tiny test by Friday? Questions turn resistance into participation. Even with strangers, these ideas travel. In a coffee shop, the air warm with roasted beans and cinnamon, the barista looks tired. You smile, ask how their day is, and order clearly. When the drink is slow, you say, "Take your time." You leave a name and a thank you. It costs seconds, but it changes you. You become a person who oils the hinges of the world instead of adding grit. If this sounds soft, measure the results. Deals close faster when people feel heard. Feedback lands better when honor is intact. Teams move quicker when egos aren't bleeding. This is not manipulation. Manipulation hides and corrodes trust. This way of being is visible, and it's verified by how people feel after they leave you. Lighter, larger, more ready to help. You will still need facts, but facts are heavy until feelings carry them. The more you stop trying to impress people, the more impressive you become. The more you stop trying to be interesting, the more interested you are, and that makes you magnetic. Ask about a weekend project, a hometown, a favorite failure. Let your posture say, "I'm here with you." You will learn things that change your plan and build a web of trust for when pressure arrives. Picture one last beat in that conference room. You reach the end of your plan. Instead of asking, "Any questions?" you ask, "What's the smallest change we'd make before we commit?" People speak up. You capture their ideas on the whiteboard and underline names next to contributions. You propose a pilot, not a march, and ask each person to own a small piece. They do because they see themselves in the plan.
When the meeting ends, the air feels different, not triumphant, aligned. You walk out with fewer slides than you prepared and more allies than you expected. None of this requires being loud. It requires being generous. Do it in a warehouse where the floor smells like oil, in a kitchen that smells like garlic, or on a video call where the only scent is your own coffee. Smile even when the camera is a small circle. Call people by name. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Talk in terms of their interests. Ask questions. Admit your mistakes. Let the other person save face. Appeal to the nobler motive and throw down a challenge that excites their pride. Simple moves, practiced daily, change who you are in every room you enter. Step back and the pattern is clear. People move toward those who make them feel respected, seen, and safe. Dale Carnegie didn't ask us to charm. He asked us to care in ways that are specific and useful. Use names because identity matters. Listen first because understanding turns down the heat. Admit mistakes quickly because humility disarms pride. Talk in terms of the other person's interests because the shortest path to action runs through what they already value. Avoid arguments because victory can ruin the bridge you both need. Give specific appreciation because people grow in the light. Ask questions instead of giving orders because ownership beats compliance. When you must persuade, begin with agreement and invite a small yes that leads to a larger one. These choices are simple and demanding, and they ask you to put ego in the back seat. Practice them in crowded rooms and quiet kitchens, and you will watch resistance soften, cooperation rise, and results follow you out the door. If this moved something in you, test it today. Pick one conversation and try 3 small moves. Use a name a strength, ask a real question. Notice the difference in the air. If you want more like this, timeless ideas with real-life texture, subscribe and share it with someone who leads you or leans on you. Drop a comment with the moment you turned an argument into agreement or a line of appreciation that changed a relationship. Until next time, lead with warmth, listen like a friend, and watch how the room tilts your way.